point. Okay, so I have a question. So with all the spirit of activism taking place around the world today, how do we find more effective ways to challenge systemic forms of oppression and dictatorship? What methods can we take?
First of all, I think our most important instrument here is knowledge. Knowledge of our history, knowledge of our situation, and maybe also knowledge of where we are and where we want to go. Once we are equipped with such knowledge and understanding, once we are aware of our situation, once we have this critical mindset to assess what we see, what we find critically, then I think we can chart a path towards common action. Unfortunately, if you follow, for instance, social media can be a very powerful instrument for positive results or for negative results, okay? Much of the social media today is being used to divide, to polarize, and to fragment the Eritrean people or the Eritrean political opposition in the diaspora. We are actually focused on the diaspora. So when I say Eritrean people, I mean Eritrean people in the diaspora who make up a very important component of Eritrean society as a whole. So I think we need to equip ourselves not only with knowledge, but with awareness. We should have some integrity in what we do. We should have consistency in what we do. And we should have tolerance for those who go astray. We should try to be, what I say, more embracing than alienating in our approach. And so I think the potential is there. It's how we utilize that potential or how we work to actualize that potential that is very important in this regard.
Okay, awesome. Alicia, I'll give it to you.
So in Eritrea and here, it is quite evident that Isaias isn't good for the country, right? I think everyone is unhappy whether they vocalize it or not. Do you in any way feel like the reason why people have not made a public stance or declaration, for those that have not, right? Is it because of the fear of what may come? And also, in talking about, in Eritrea, a lot of people have been forced to engage in criminal activity, whether it's petty, which could be thievery, it could be properties. Many families have had to fight for properties, or many people have taken other people's properties just because of the government's restrictions or the rules that they have made that didn't work to their favor. Is that in any way keeping the fear of what to come? Is that in any way keeping people from joining the movement and demanding that this government is taken out?
I think there are several factors that actually characterize not all the groups at the same time to the same extent. Let me give you a context. The border war brought about a lot of negative consequences for Eritrea and Eritreans. And what followed for 20 years, a state of no war, no peace, in which, of course, with the unwitting collaboration of the government, the country was isolated. It was under sanctions, and there was this, of course, occupation of sovereign Eritrean territory, which continues. And therefore, the government has skillfully used this as pretexts for justifying the regime of oppression that is perpetrated against the Eritrean people. And in the name of national security, it has securitized the system or the state. And many people, quite honestly, quite frankly, may have believed that it is not proper to oppose a regime when the country is under threat from foreign aggression, or when parts of the country are still under foreign occupation. That these were, of course, ploys has become quite clear in the last 2 years. They were used as a pretext. They were not the real reason. They did not prevent, they were not really decisive factors in perpetrating the oppressive rule of the government. The government could have actually implemented the constitution. It could have conducted free and fair elections. It could have actually handed power to the people or to whoever the people might have voted for, elected, etc., etc. But they have been used as a pretext. But these pretexts have been a very powerful factor in the minds of many Eritreans to say this is not the right time to oppose the government. So this set of excuses or pretexts for others. Another thing is, unfortunately, the opposition is basing itself in a country with which our home country has issues of territorial integrity, issues of sovereignty, has also undermined the credibility of the opposition and undermined or actually weakened the will to join it by many Eritreans who are opposed to the regime, who want democratic transformation in Eritrea, but shy away from joining an opposition that has made common cause with what the government and in many ways, much of the Eritrean people consider an enemy, a government that violates the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Eritrea. So this is also a factor. So given these factors, what we call the Bado Celeste in Tigrinya, or 03, the propaganda machine of the regime, has played into the sphere of Eritreans with quite effective results. And in terms of people inside Eritrea who are still with the regime, the fact that they might have committed wrongs, committed crimes, and they might be worried of possible accountability could be a factor. So I think all these factors are probably applicable to different sectors of Eritreans who in one way or another, even though they may not be supportive of the regime and its oppressive practices, have not come up openly to criticize and condemn it.
Okay, thanks, Ambassador. We have a few questions from our viewers. So the first one is, the force of change heavily lies on the youth, and Eritrea is being depleted of its youth. Is it realistic to expect a change from within?
Yes, of course. The fact is, a large number of Eritrean youth have left the country because the regime has turned the country into a place where Eritreans are unable to live in. So it's the push factor that has actually driven Eritreans to seek refuge outside the country. But we should not forget that still a larger number of young men and women are still in Eritrea as conscripts in the army. And so it's not true that most Eritrean youth are outside. There is still a large number of Eritrean youth. In fact, some studies indicate that over 50% of the population of Eritrea inside the country are young men and women, etc. Okay, so it's quite realistic. It's not only the youth, but also the non-young population, the older population, who can provide guidance and support to the youth movement to bring about change. I want also to underscore the fact that we say we've had 65,000 martyrs during the war. The overwhelming majority of these martyrs are young men and women in their late teens and early 20s. So one cannot imagine change and change of such proportions without the active participation, the committed participation of the youth of the country. And I think when we say change, we should come from within, I want also to emphasize the role of the youth outside the country, the youth in the diaspora. They can play a very important role in supporting and empowering and reinforcing, strengthening the movement, the resistance movement inside the country, not only by encouraging them, but also by providing all kinds of support as necessary through the various kinds of links that are possible to establish. We often talk about building a political bridge between the diaspora opposition and the domestic resistance. And so I think the youth can play a very important part in building, sustaining, and consolidating that political bridge. And once that bridge is, of course, built and the link is consolidated, there will be a time when we reach a critical mass that it would bring about change from within.
Okay, awesome. So just trying to move swiftly. So the next question our audience has is, you and others have been talking for the last 15 years that we need to be connected with the Eritrean army, but still it did not materialize. Is it realistic to play the same strategy?
Look, the Eritrean army is only one of many actors. There are also other actors inside Eritrea. So the important thing is to identify these actors and to see how you can relate with these actors in order to accelerate the process of change, and make sure at the same time that once change takes place, there will be a stable, peaceful transition. Because when we are talking about change, we are talking about change for the better. And in a state or in a situation like Eritrea, where there are no functional institutions, it's very important to realize that once change comes, the building of institutions must begin right away. We must also prepare with a policy for economic reconstruction, sustainable, inclusive development. We should also prepare for a program of security sector reform. There are many issues we need to prepare for so that we are ready to address them when the time comes. And the Eritrean army, as I said, is only one of many actors, an important actor, yes, but we have to realize that we have to build these bridges with the army, rank and file, the middle officer corps, and the population at large, the civil service, the apparatus in the front and in the government, etc. Because the principal agents of change in Eritrea are inside Eritrea. The external agents of change can play a very catalytic or supportive role at best.
Okay, awesome. Wow. People are wanting to ask you a lot of questions today. Sorry, Alicia. I'm just going to quickly go through the questions. We just have like 2-3 more. So the third question is, it is not necessarily to be violent means to use a neighboring country as a jump spring of our struggle. It would rather reinforce the elements of changes within the country. What would you say about that?
I fully agree with that, because the country they are referring it to the south of Eritrea, this is a country in turmoil itself. In fact, I see a triangle there. You have two state actors based in Addis Ababa and Asmara. You have a non-state actor based in Magale. but Mekelle is part of the Addis Ababa. So we should always bear this in mind. And so I fully agree that the struggle for change should be focused on mobilizing Eritreans both at home and abroad in the diaspora to come together, coalesce, and make possible the emergence of a critical mass that would allow for change to happen.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I have another one here, one more, and then we're going to wrap it up. This one is, Dear Ambassador, I'm cognizant that your contribution to the Eritrean cause is recorded in history. While you are talking in the topic of trust, we are witnessing that our elders in their 70s, including yourself, are still aspiring to resume power in tomorrow's Eritrea. Do you believe you are a role model to the young generation? What role are you playing in empowering the young generation?
I would say not me personally necessarily, but our generation, which grew up mostly in Eritrea, at least during the early years of life until the early teens, with our parents, with our enthusiastic, patriotic teachers, our communities, were imbued with this idea of Eritrean nationalism, Eritrean patriotism. And even though we grew up in many parts of the world, like I went to school in Ethiopia, in the United States, etc., we kept this touch with our country, this aspiration for freedom for our people. And so my generation, the generation before us, and the generations, maybe 2 generations after us, they were ready to make the ultimate sacrifice in order to make Eritrea free and the Eritrean people, of course, free. Unfortunately, there has been a betrayal, as I said earlier. The original objectives for which we fought have been betrayed. And instead of freedom, we have dictatorship. Instead of democracy, instead of prosperity, we have poverty, extreme want, etc. We know the state of Eritrea today is in a state of economic paralysis, really political ruin, economic devastation, so much so that Eritrea has become a place really unfit for the Eritreans to live in. So in that sense, in the sense that we gave up our careers, our education, our families, in order to fight for freedom, for the freedom of Eritrea, for the freedom of the Eritrean people, I think we are role models. And today, in our late 60s, early 70s, maybe even late 70s, we can share our experience, help, advise, guide the struggle of the youth. Because no generation alone can bring about change. Change is an intergenerational affair. So each generation has its contribution to make. And my generation, the generation before me, and the 2 generations maybe after me, have really a history of selflessness, a history of self-sacrifice for the sake of the country, for the sake of the people. And I think these are worth emulating. And this can inspire young men and women like you. And we are here to help you, to empower you, to help you find the right way to channel your energies, your resources, so that ultimately we can all succeed in bringing about change and making that change transition to a democratic system of government where Eritrea would be free, prosperous, and a just society can be created which avails every Eritrean equal opportunity, equal freedom, and of course, equal rights.
Awesome. Okay, just one more thing. And one more person wants to give a message. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, before we get this heard out. So we're almost done. I know you guys are all busy. From your perspective, if you were to envision a new Eritrea, what would it look like?
Look, Eritrea is a multinational, multi-religious society. We are a small country, but a diverse people. We have created unity in our diversity and faced and overcome great adversity in our modern history. Our strongest, or I should say, our most powerful strength is unity, this unity in diversity. The idea of an Eritrean identity that has evolved, national identity that has evolved in successive struggles against maybe various foreign or alien powers, against colonial rule, external colonial rule. And I think this is a great asset for us all. And so we should continue to preserve this unity in diversity, value, cherish this unity in diversity, and fight together for the future Eritrea that would be livable for all of us in the same way, with the same rights, with the same freedoms, with the same opportunities, without discrimination. In other words, we should fight for change that will embody social justice and equality of all Eritrean citizens, irrespective of their diverse affiliations within Eritrean society.
Okay, awesome. One more question, and then a viewer, someone wants to call in to speak with you. What message would you like to relay to the younger generation that would help us move forward from the current state of affairs? Like, what's your last message?
I think the young generation in the diaspora has a great opportunity, access to education. So I would like to advise them to pursue their education, to equip themselves with knowledge, with technology, with innovation, to prepare for when the time comes to contribute to Eritrea, to create a green economy that's sustainable and, of course, inclusive, to develop professional skills that will be very useful to the reconstruction, rebuilding, and development of Eritrea. At the same time, also to become aware of themselves as Eritreans, to understand Eritrean history, to partake of the body of knowledge that exists about Eritrea as a country and as a people. So to position themselves, to consolidate their identity as Eritreans, and to prepare themselves for maximum contribution for when the change comes, and at the same time also participate in the struggle for change that's going on today.
Okay, awesome. So thanks, Ambassador. So we have our chairman on the line, and he would like to say a few words to you. So, Gazai, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me, guys?
Yeah. I think we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. This is Gazai from Winnipeg. I would like to thank everyone who participated in this important discussion. Mr. Ambassador Andebrhan, I think we've met a couple of times actually, but as you remember, we invited you to Winnipeg in 2017, I think September, and you brought your book here, and we had a very nice conversation, and continued to meet after that over the phone. So it's good to hear you again. I just want to say very, very few words, but that are very important to me, and I believe to Yiakl Canada. As you know very well, Yiakl is a grassroots city-based movement that tries to bring people together, people of all political stripes, for one and one reason only. The objective is to bring change that every Eritrean believes the country deserves. So we hope, Mr. Ambassador and your colleagues and everyone to help and support this very, very important movement, because, as you know, the generation's dream that has started from your generation, for your generation, our generation, and young generation has continued not to be realized because of the situation in our country. So we have a duty more than any time in our lives to be together, to come together as Eritreans and save the nation. I cannot overemphasize the need of working together in all facets of our struggle to build the trust, to make sure that all of us are doing the right things in whatever way. As Yiaklers, we believe that people should join us, but it is not mandatory. Anyone or any group that has Eritrean national interests at heart is part of this Yiaklal, this way or that way. So, Mr. Ambassador, the urgency of the country right now is unseen in history. You know this very well. This is beyond human rights violations, beyond crimes against humanity, beyond any kind of dictatorial or tyrannical regimes that we've seen or we told you so. This is the very foundation of the Eritrean state is at stake. The country, led by a single individual, is being sold to another highest bidder, or that would probably make the nation extinct from now on. So if things is going on the way they are going, we are all scared that the nation that we all love, that you, your generations, and everyone fought for would no longer exist. This is unique in a history of struggle of any nation. So with this foundation, I just want to leave you on this note that what can we do to make sure that despite our differences, despite so-called polarizations, what can we do to each of us to make sure that at least the nation is saved? The most important thing for us is to be Eritreans, and we're losing that. That is the note I want to leave you, and thank you for staying with us, and I will also thank Finan and Alicia for this program, and we hope to continue to engage together in this noble and extremely important purpose that is serving our beloved Eritrea. Thank you.
Thanks, Gazai. Okay.
Thank you very much, Gazai. I remember you very well. You were one of my hosts, and I was very pleased, and I had a good time at the university where I presented about the human rights situation in Eritrea and with the Eritrean members of the Eritrean community in Winnipeg. So I remember you quite vividly. And I must admit, I have very fond memories of that trip in Winnipeg, Canada. Having said that, you're right, unity is of paramount importance. This Yiaklal, or this enough, every Eritrean who has joined the ranks of the political opposition in various forms, in various organizations at various times, is saying, Yiaklal, enough. That this Yiaklal became a movement, maybe a couple of years ago, is, of course, an outcome of that. Otherwise, every movement is saying Yiaklal. Then how can we bring about some semblance of unity or coalitions so that, because unity is a strength, we can improve our effectiveness. Effectiveness in what? Effectiveness in bringing about change and making that change reality. I think first and foremost, we should have certain principles that underlie the fundamental importance of Eritrean ownership of policy, decision, and movement. If we agree on this, I think we've made a very important milestone in laying the basis for working together. Another thing is, of course, to focus on the factors that unite us, not necessarily downplay the factors that divide us, but try to really engage in open, frank dialogue with a view to minimizing these differences. It's normal, it's natural. Differences of opinion on any issue is a normal part of everyday life, okay? And there is nothing wrong with having differences. It's how we treat these differences that's important in my view. So if we have a shared objective based on a shared understanding and a shared awareness of our situation and a shared vision of where we want to be tomorrow, then I think we should be able to sit together and narrow our differences so that over time, through open dialogue, inclusive dialogue, we can narrow down our differences, build on the factors that unite us, and eventually manage to come together, follow a single strategy that will bring us to what we want to do. And that is to bring about change in Eritrea and contribute to a stable, peaceful, democratic transition in the country.
Okay, well, that is all for today. I appreciate all of you guys, starting from Ambassador, Alicia, Afuk. We are all so busy. We lead such busy lives, and we're so grateful that you've shared some of your time with us. Thank you so much, and I hope hopefully sometime soon, maybe we could do part 2, who knows. But again, for our viewers, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to everybody, and we are wrapping up for today. And please check out that video of the Building Trust that I made. I will post it. And thank you guys, and have a prosperous rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and to you, and through you to our audience. And thank you very much. And I'd be happy to do such a kind of, I think, very fruitful discussion again. So much appreciated. And I think my calls are coming at the right time now.
Okay. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.